program? If not, then I can ask this question, load only the call graph without function bodies. So, I can say I simply get the top level call structure. I know that F1 calls F2, F2 calls F3. I do not load the body of F1, I do not load the body of F2, but I want to correlate what happens in F1 and F2. So, now I can visualize a structure where there is a pre-optimization pass, a summary generation pass, where I have computed the summary for F1, I have computed the summary for F2 and kept independently in my .o.s. And now, when I load the call graph, I have the summary with me. I know something about F1, I do not have the function body, but I have summary of F1. For example, I would know the size of F1 is small, let us say. Then I can examine the call graph and I can see that F1 is not in a cycle of recursion. Then I can say, yes, it is a small function, does not have too many calls, not in a cycle of recursion, I can inline it. This is a decision that I could not have taken by IPA passes that worked in a translation unit. So, this is a situation where I can divide the work in such a manner that I load the entire call graph, but not the function bodies. That is one option. Okay. So, independent computation of summary information, adjusting summary information through the whole program analysis over the call graph. So, I have F1 calling F2. Now, I know that if I inline F1, should I inline F2 as well? Maybe F1 is small, but how do I know whether F1 is recursive or not? So, I have to know what F2 calls or what F1 calls. I have to know that F1 calls F2 and I have to know that F2 calls F3 and I have to know that eventually there is no call to F1 back. So, I am adjusting my summary information by doing analysis across functions by simply looking at the call graph and the summary information. I am not looking at the function bodies. This is one way whereby I can avoid loading the entire program together. Okay. So, there are three parts. I generate a summary, I look at a function independently. When I generate summary of F1, I do not need to know about F2. Then I adjust the summary by looking at caller-callee relationship between F1 and F2. That is where I need caller-callee relationship. I do not need the function bodies. Now, I have taken my decisions. I have taken my decision that F1 should be inlined. Now, in order for me to inline F1, I need to have the function body of F1. I need to have the function body of the functions that have called F1, right. So, in the first case I need function body, in the second case I need call graph, in the third case I need function bodies. So, I can divide my work neatly into these three phases. This is what we call as a multi-process LTO. The other option is, along with call graph, I load the entire function body of the entire program, in which case my transformation etc. could happen in the same process. So, we call this a single process LTO. Let us look at this in greater details. So, why avoid loading function bodies? Obvious reasons. Practical programs could be very large. In fact, we found this difficulty where we our OS kept on thrashing when we were doing pointer analysis for a large program. We realized that the whole thing, compilation unit, was very large when we combine many translation units. So, many and at the same time you may not need all the function bodies, such as inlining, some simple optimization, interprocedural optimizations can be done without loading the function bodies. For example, procedure cloning, maybe I do not need inlining. Maybe I can see F1 once is called with parameter 5, F1 the other time is called with parameter 10, and I have a loop in F1, and I can perhaps parallelize that loop if I knew how many times the loop body is going to get executed. So, I create F11 and I create F12, and F11 I specialize the loop saying it goes from I is equal to 1 to 5, and in the other case I say it goes from I is equal to 1 to 10. So, now I have two different functions cloned based on the parameters, and now I can optimize them separately. So, all these decisions can be taken without actually looking at the function body. All I need to know is what are the parameters that are being passed to the functions. So, there are some simple optimizations that can be done without looking at all the function bodies together. The issue is, obviously we will have to look at the function bodies. The $1,000,000 question is, do I need to load all of them together? So, the answer is some optimizations can be done by looking at function bodies independently, by looking at caller-callee relationships independently. Okay. So, then that leads to these two optimization modes. This is called Whopper mode, whole program mode of LTO. I do not like this term because entire analysis is still whole program analysis. You are still doing analysis across procedure bodies. Okay. So, I would like to call it multi-process LTO. There are three steps that we just now talked about: LGen, local generation of summary information of a translation unit; WPA, called whole program analysis, reads the call graph and not the function bodies. Summary information for each function is read, some analysis is done, optimization summary is written back, and finally there is LTrans, local transformation. Now I have my optimization decisions. Now I know that this function has to be inline. I do not need the entire body, I only need F1 and I need callers of F1 and I can inline F1, right. So, there are three distinct phases: LGen, WPA and LTrans.
Yeah. So, a single translation unit is related to time.
Yes, that is why we call it multi-process. Why do we? So, this is LGen is potentially parallel. I can process different translation units in parallel. Okay. WPA will have to be sequential because I need the caller-callee relationship, single call graph. Once I have taken optimization decisions, LTrans could also be potentially parallel. This is the sense that I had in mind when I said an hour ago that there is a limited form of parallelism that could be brought in compilation using GCC. So far, it has not been brought in, but this is the goal. This is where people are working on. Now, the question is, why do we call it multi-process LTO? So, we call it multi-process LTO because GCC executes LGen. This is one process. Obviously, LGen will have to be done no matter whether you read the function bodies or you do not read the function bodies. So, that is one process. Let us keep it out. In the subsequent process of LTO1, we perform whole program analysis. Now, when we are performing whole program analysis, can we do transformation? No, because we do not have function bodies. We can only take decisions. So, when do we perform transformations? That will have to be an independent process of LTO. So, there are two processes of LTO, LTO1, and therefore, we call it a multi-process LTO. Let us look at the other option when I load the entire function bodies. So, I have LGen and I have IPA, interprocedural analysis, but I also have function bodies with me, right. So, I can process all of them at the same time. This is potentially parallel, this will have to be sequential, and now because it is in the same process, sorry, it will have to be sequential. That is the price that you have to pay. Okay. But that is not the main point. The main point is we would like to call it a single process LTO. Why do we call it a single process LTO? Because GCC generates LGen, LTO1 has not been called, then I call LTO1, and LTO1 is capable of doing both IPA and LTrans within the same process of LTO1, within the same execution of LTO1, I am doing analysis and transformation. Therefore, we would like to call it single process LTO. Okay. And this is enabled in GCC by saying minus FLTO partition equal to none. This is a very funny thing. When you say partition equal to none, so the assumption is that we would like to partition it sometime. If you are saying partition equal to none, whole function bodies get loaded. I would have liked this option to be named minus FLTO load function bodies, right, but that is not what it is, which is very confusing. It has taken a lot of time to figure out what these things mean because documentation says nothing. I wished documentation talked about this or the code clearly said what it does. So, we have to keep doing experiments and figure out. Okay. So, LTO pass hook. So, we talked about a regular IPA pass and we said there is this opt pass, there is generate summary, read summary. Now, let us look at the role of these hooks. So, I have LGen for multi-process LTO. So, generate summary, write summary. I have LGen for single process LTO. Then I have whole program analysis for multi-process LTO. Execute function in this struct opt pass. This is what will enable analysis, and then there is a write optimization summary that I will need, and then I actually perform the transformation, and this is IPA for single process LTO, and then I perform transformation, read optimization summary. I call this function called function transform, which is what will do the optimizations. The decisions have been taken beforehand. So, this is for multi-process LTO and this is for single process LTO. In single process LTO, of course, I could put transformations right here in opt pass, or I could put it here. This is how LTO works, but this is still not a clear picture. So, you go to look at some more pictures for LTO. So, what are the options that we have? Transformation could be done along with analysis, or transformation could be done independently of analysis. Analysis and transformation could be two different processes, analysis or transformation could be a single process. These are the two options, and when I want to do whole program analysis, I could either get a call graph without function bodies, or I could get a call graph with function bodies. So, these are the two options here, and we would like to see all possible combinations, then we will understand exactly how these combinations work. So, I have call graph without function bodies and I want to do transformation. So, obviously, I do not have call graph, I do not have function bodies, so I can't do this, right. So, this is not supported. This is supported in an independent process, this is supported in multiple processes, this will be supported multiple partitions of the program. So, either I have a different process, but single partition, I read the whole program, or I partition the read thing into various parts. This will be supported in future, right now it is not being supported. This option in the same, so I want to do analysis and transformation both, because I have function bodies, I can support this. This has not been supported and this has not been supported. So, this is what is enabled by minus FLTO option. This is the actual Whopper mode. So, when we talk about Whopper mode, it is not fully functional yet. This is what is going to come, and this is what has been supported with FLTO partition equal to none, and this is the migration of the GCC source towards the future of link time optimization. So, coming back to LTO control flow. So, we have LTO1, which is LTO main, and we have LTO process name. This will read C graph, it will call something called materialized C graph. So, it will recreate the call graph from the data that has been read. Read C graph will get the data from the .o files. This will call materialized call graph, and from here execute IPA pass list all. So, this is the same function that we have in GCC, okay. Or otherwise we will call this C graph optimize, which is the same function in GCC. I said some time ago that C graph optimize is the important function. This, so these are the two modes of LTO. Let us understand it once again clearly. This is what we saw. Let me not go over this in greater details. Let us understand it at an abstract level. This is the LTO, this is the CC1 process. Top level main, compile file, C graph analyze function, and then we say C graph optimize, IPA passes, etc., etc., etc. Now, my LTO1 function also shares the same piece of code. It will read the call graph, and now call graph analyze can work on the same call graph, C graph optimize can work on the same call graph. So, LTO1 basically has to create this wrapper and reuse the existing infrastructure within GCC, and that is the meaning in which I said it is a pretty nicely engineered mechanism that has been put in GCC. So, let's have our pictorial conventions. So, the source code of the entire tarball is, you have code for CC1, you have code for LTO1, and there is a lot of common code. Let us denote CC1 executable where this common code gets linked with CC1, this is static linking. Let us call LTO1 executable such that this common code gets linked with functions in LTO1. Okay? So, we will use this picture to indicate exactly how link time optimization works overall. This is what was the picture that we had seen earlier, the pictorial representation of our tool chain. Okay, we saw that we have GCC driver, that calls CC1, that calls AS, that calls LD, and now we want to modify it. How do we want to modify it? We want to call LTO1, and we now know that this LTO1 in turn will call the CGraph optimize function. Okay. So now we call linker via collect2. Collect2 is the wrapper, and this collect2 wrapper allows us to decide whether we want to call LTO1 or whether we want to call linker. This requires us to change our view completely. This was a very simplistic view. Let us look at a more matured view, a more precise view. So we have GCC as a driver. Let us see what happens. So now we submit CC1. This is our convention for CC1. Our C file is going to get compiled. What will be the output of this C file? fat.s files. I am calling it fat because they contain all the additional information about Gimple that has been dumped apart from the usual compilation. These fat.s files will have to be processed by an assembler, and if you give a fat.s file to an assembler, it will give you a fat.o file. What else can it do anyway, right? So you will call AS. Now you got .o files. You got .o files, they have to be submitted to a linker. So therefore collect2 will be called. Collect2 will examine the .o files. Collect2 will check whether they are fat files or whether they are normal files. If the normal files, collect2 will call linker. If they are fat files, then collect2 will call LTO1. Note that this LTO1 shares a lot of common code with CC1. LTO1 will be executed. LTO1 will now create a single .s file for the entire program. You can say it is a fat file, but still it does not have the Gimple representation into it. It is only the assembly program. It is a normal assembly program. Once again we will invoke, so we will, so this single assembler will work on it, it will give us a single .o file. Once we have done assembly, we have to once again call collect2. Collect2 will now examine the .o file and say, okay, now I do not have those extra sections, so I do not need to call LTO. This we are talking about single process LTO. You can visualize what will happen in multi-process LTO. If it is a multi-process LTO, collect2 will once again call LTO1. Otherwise, in the normal case, it will call the linker and will get a.out file as the executable. Right? This is the real picture for a single process LTO.
Sir?
Yeah.
So in the previous step, after the first step, why are we generating the .s information? We are just using the Gimple information in the later stages.
Good question. Why are we generating the compilation of the function? Would someone like to answer that question?
Well, you don't know future of that A there onwards.
Yes. I mean, you may want to use that .s or .o file in normal linking. So it is just to make sure that the normal flow is not disrupted. That is all, there is no other reason. Yeah.
So after LTO1, when control goes back to the GCC,
Uh-huh.
so GCC starts in between, I mean, from the
Yes.
simple parser.
Yes.
So how do you keep the starting parser and all the parsers?
Beg your pardon? So CGraph optimize will call execute pass list. This is what we want to see now. We built a CGraph, now we have everything that we need. Right? So we will say IPA passes, execute pass list, execute IPA summary, all these functions will be executed. That is the whole idea. There is no need of now, the pass list etc. is there, pass variables etc. You simply making a different executable for this. So obviously those pass variables, pass lists etc. will have to be included in this executable as well. Right? So this piece of code, the blue piece of code gets executed twice, once through CC1 and the other time through LTO1. Okay. Now let us look at,
Sir,
yeah,
so this is not clear. How was data passed between the executables?
through these .os. I write everything in a .o file.
Okay, so this will construct the C graphs again.
Yes. So look at this part. This materialized C graph. Okay. LTO process name, LTO init reader, read C graph and symbols. That's done initially in LTO1 from the .o files.
So if it was a single process,
Same.
it will
Reads.
no, not single process LTO. If it's a single executable,
Yeah.
which is also doing LTO and CC1 and all of that, it might not make sense, but you don't have to do all these steps.
Yes. Yes. You will end up redoing the whole thing. Right. So multi-process LTO. Let's look at it. Now understand clearly. Let's say there are multiple files. So I have f1.c. I create f1.o. I know it's a fat f1.o. Now I process f2.c with the option minus flto, okay, and minus c, because I just want to create .o, and these are the instructions that are given to you for the lab exercise in the afternoon. You will do all these experiments. So we will compile f2.c, then we will compile f3.c. So now I have all of them together. Now I give this option minus flto out. So what does this mean? So far, so this whole thing is GCC. This whole thing is a GCC driver. GCC driver. These pink things are CC1s. These blue things is LTO1. So LTO1 will basically read all these things. When I read all these things, I am going to get an out file, because I have said minus O out. I want to name the output file as out. Okay. This is the external view. Internally what happens? Let us open up the hood. So we have CC1 executing. CC1 will actually create a large call graph without procedure bodies. That is the definition of multi-process LTO. I do not have procedure bodies. So therefore inter-procedural analysis, is it possible? Yes, obviously, because I have the call graph. Some inter-procedure, not all kinds of inter-procedural analysis may be possible, but some of it is certainly possible, assuming that I have the appropriate summary. Is transformation possible? No, because I need to have function body. If I do not have function body, how do I do the transformation, right? So I do my analysis. Now I also want to do transformation. So I have to create this, and I will have to call another LTO1 in order to do the transformation, and then I am going to get my out file. This is the internal picture. Okay. So this is LGen process, this is WPA process, and this is the LTrans phase of LTO. And you can see LTO called once, LTO1 called once, LTO1 called 2, therefore it is a multi-process LTO. And why am I not calling 2-process LTO? Because this could inherently be parallel in future. So the LTO1 may be called on different partitions, several on several partitions. So therefore, to be general, we call it multi-process. Let us say single process LTO. Yeah.
Sir, what would happen if you compile, say, F1C with option FLTO, and then the other C files you compile without this option, and then you decide to link together using this FLTO?
Okay. So I will answer your question, but my standard answer to this question, whenever somebody asks this question in the class, is I say, do it in the afternoon in the lab and figure it out yourself. But obviously it won't work, it will fail somewhere. I don't know what the error message it will give, but you should try this in the afternoon. Obviously it will not work, but that's these are the kind of experiments that you should try to do. Something has been stated, try to extend it.
It should compile but not optimize, that's all. You can definitely mix non-LTO files, .os, into the overall pool of total .os.
Maybe.
Those .os will not be considered.
Maybe for a graceful behavior of the compiler, this is what has been done. We should figure it out. We have not tried it.
You just flag them as non-optimizable or non-participating.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know what has been done, because this thought never occurred to me. But this is how you should stretch ideas in different directions.
The other one is once you do the multi-process LTO and the other one with single this one.
No, you can't do both, because your single process is enabled by minus FLTO partition equal to none, in which case multi-process is suppressed. They are exclusive as of now. but one could try it out and see whether it gives an error message or whether it is silent and simply gives you a file without optimizing it. In fact, in the afternoon you have to do this experiment to compile files separately with -FLTO, without -FLTO, with -FLTO partition equal to none, and see the behavior difference in the behavior. At that time you can try this fourth option. You can say, okay, let me compile one with -FLTO and the other with without -FLTO and see what happens. Yeah.
Why is LTO there? Why not treat Dotto as some kind of source language itself, which contains LTO information, and just compile that Dotto with LTO into Gimples, and then allow the standard chain to do all the work. Think of Dotto as say O+, which is a different language altogether. Finally, you want the language front end to give Gimples. So this will give some Gimples.
That's a good thought. His question is, why do you put all that Gimple information in the Dotto?
No, if you have it anyway, think of it as a source language. It's a different language.
No, are you saying?
Yeah, Dotto plus, which is O plus LTO information. It's a new language altogether.
Are you saying Gimple is there in Dotto or is not there?
Yes, they are separate Dotto.
Then that's what is done.
It says, so why do you need this separate LTO processing altogether? Think of O plus as a separate language front end.
No, so that's what would, if you submit all the files together with -FLTO option, that's what will be done anyway. And that, in fact, in order to treat it as a language front end, that's why it becomes an FLTO executable separately, like AS or LD. It's a separate thing, it's a completely independent thing. The driver can invoke the same thing once again. Let us look at the single process LTO. Once again we repeat the same thing, f1.c, f2.c, we get f2.o. Now there is an additional option, -FLTO partition equal to none, and we get an out file. But this is the external picture. What is the internal view? The internal view is we have a large call graph and we have procedure bodies as well. So we can do interprocedural analysis, yes. Can we do optimizations? Yes. So there is no need of invoking LTO once again. There is only a single process of LTO1. This is LGen and this is IPA plus LTRANS. Okay. This whole program analysis can examine function bodies also. So this can be very rich. The pointer analysis that we are going to talk in the afternoon actually uses this model. We would like to do interprocedural pointer analysis, flow and context sensitive pointer analysis to figure out pointer information. Okay, so this is what is done so let me conclude. Excellent mechanism of plugging in of different translators in the main driver is pretty nice, except that it would have been very nice to put things uniformly. Somehow they are not uniform, but they serve their purpose reasonably well. Excellent mechanism of plugging in front end, back end in the main compiler. However, plugins have been used in an ad hoc manner. LTO is a good support for interprocedural analysis and optimizations. It would be useful to support a single process LTO mode, and this is where it brings me to the problem that I mentioned in the morning, the problem that we are trying to solve, when I was mentioning that maybe our expectation is unreasonable. I do not know yet. What is our expectation? When we say -FLTO partition equal to none, I get a large call graph and I get procedure bodies with it, but I get bodies of all the procedures. I do not have a choice of saying give me these 10 procedures first. Maybe I can detect a cycle of recursion in my call graph, and I will say I want to process these function bodies together, I do not need the other function bodies. GCC does not give me that facility. It is a all or none approach. You get all procedure bodies or you get no procedure bodies. It would be nice to have a facility for dynamic loading of bodies. In my pass, I should be able to analyze the call graph and determine. They say that yes, we will allow partitioning, but the partitioning is based on the size. I do not want that. They are talking about interprocedural analysis in which a function is processed only once. They are talking about a summary interprocedural analysis. In my lexicon, it is not interprocedural analysis. Interprocedural analysis should allow you to correlate information. If F1 influences F2, F2 influences F1, you should be able to reanalyze until you get a fixed point computation. You should be able to really see what pointers reach from F1 to F2 and from F2 to F1 and so on. And this cannot be done unless you have function bodies. You can't simply read F1 in isolation, F2 in isolation and compose the effect of the summary. That doesn't work. According to me, the real interprocedural analysis, and this has been an important research goal here, is to do interprocedural analysis by combining function bodies. We started doing that in GCC, and there were two main roadblocks. The first roadblock was that of course, we did not have a facility of loading the function bodies, processing cross translation unit. We did have an interesting interprocedural algorithm which was very efficient, far more efficient than people ever imagined. We could get speed ups of the order of 1,000,000 over the classical flow and context sensitive analysis, call strings based analysis. We could show that that algorithm is still not dead, people simply do not know how to use it. We did a small tweak and we could make it very fast. So, yes, that was good thing. However, the use of function pointers is the other thing that is a roadblock. If I have a function pointer, I do not know at compile time which function calls which function. So, that is a PhD problem that we have. Third problem that we have, a roadblock, is again loading of either all procedure bodies or some procedure bodies. We would like to look at a situation where I would specify, give me these 10 function bodies of these 10 functions, then I should be able to say I am done with it, unload it, I do not need them. Then give me next 10 functions. We tried this, Amit was looking at it as a part of his course project in the GCC course. He was able to load the function bodies, but somehow the unloading did not work. And maybe it is related to the fact that the addresses are stored somewhere, and if you load you get the same memory addresses. So, maybe the entire memory needs to be cleaned, I do not know, maybe our expectations are unreasonable, but we will have to go back to the drawing board and look at it. If some of you are interested in this problem, this is a significant problem, it is a practically relevant problem, it is a useful problem, we would be very happy to collaborate with you to look at it. I do not know whether it is a great research problem or not, but it certainly is a great software engineering problem, that I can guarantee. I do not know whether theoretical issues will come out of it or not. So, that is the research thing that we are doing, and the other thing about point analysis that we will talk in the afternoon. Let me summarize what have we seen. We have seen the overall skeleton of the machine independent part of the compiler. We have seen the plugin mechanisms, we have seen the control flow, and we have seen a new and a very important feature of GCC, which is LTO, which is difficult to understand, but once we get down to the brass tacks